Hi, I'm Sean Saunders with College Golf Local, and we're here with Kevin Kring, and we just want to tell Kevin's story. I think it's really good for the junior golfers in Southwest Missouri to hear where Kevin's background is playing junior golf at a high level here in Springfield, Missouri, moving on playing college Division I golf at University of Colorado, and then now playing professional golf at doing the web.com, the Corn Ferry Tours, and some of the pro-ams and stuff. So Kevin, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started, and how you ended up playing professional golf.
Yeah, so it's a long journey. I'll try to consolidate the best that I can. So I grew, born and raised here in Springfield, Missouri, and I played a lot of sports growing up, but I just really liked the individual aspect that golf kind of provided. I got really, there's a lot of things looking back, and as I get older, I can kind of reflect back on a lot of areas where I kind of got lucky with certain things. Just situationally, you kind of end up in certain situations that you can look back on and be like, wow, that taught me a lot. Like I started playing golf at age 11 with my dad and his kind of friends on the weekend, and we're playing for a few bucks, and I never got an allowance. So I was like, wow, this is kind of fun to make $8-10 over the span of a weekend. And that kind of motivated me to start playing pretty well. I started working at it a little harder. I had some really good friends at the golf course that, rain or shine, you knew these four other kids were going to be there with me, and the five of us could get any game, any practice, any competition that we wanted. So I was always really thankful to have those boys out there as well. About age 10, I played in an SMJGA tournament at Marshfield. I didn't know anything about it. I was just like, well, that's different than the club championship, which I played in a few times at Quinn Oaks. And I played with this kid who he was kind of like, he was the guy. And I remember I played as well as I could possibly play, and he still beat me by one. But his parents were there, and they kind of told my mom quite a bit about, oh, you should look at this tournament and this tournament and this tournament. So, okay, so we start doing that. And next thing I know, I'm 12 years old and I'm playing a tournament in St. Louis. And then when we were there, there's some people there that, they're like, oh, we do this and this and this. And again, my family doesn't know what's going on. We're first generation golfers in that sense. So I kind of started growing as a golfer, started kind of expanding where I was playing, and my game was improving as well. So I started to work with this kind of like agency out of St. Louis. They were brand new, kind of right whenever I was coming up, 2002, 2003. And they really helped recommend tournaments all throughout the year. And they had a handful of kids that were all from St. Louis, and they send a lot of us to the same tournaments. So we had some familiarities, play some practice rounds with one another. And eventually they helped me with the whole college recruiting process. It was pretty strict on what you could do rules wise, talking to coaches. But what we ended up doing is they acted as a middleman for me. So if I was trying to call a coach, I'd call Coach Higgins at Texas A&M, and I missed him. He would then let them know, hey, have Kevin call me at 7:30. I'll be around. So then I'd call, because he could not call me back, but I could call him, and then we could chat. So kind of learning the intricacies of that. And then they set up a bunch of unofficial visits for me because, again, they could act as the middleman. So I think all in all, I took 13 unofficial visits before the end of my junior year in high school. And that was all over the place. I got to go to basketball games, football games, tour campuses, all that sort of stuff. And I really got to see what was a good fit for me, what was not a good fit for me. I took a spring break trip where I visited with the coaches at Duke, North Carolina, and Wake Forest. And believe it or not, like I just saw the Wake Forest campus and was like, that's not for me. It felt too small. And that's not the story. I mean, Will Zalatoris seemed to like it, and he's a pretty good player. But that's one thing I strongly recommend for kids is like, if you have opportunities, go see campuses, get to know coaches. Don't just have like this one little, like, I'm going to go here no matter what, because you might get on campus and you're like, oh, this is not what I thought it was. The one time I was here when I was 9, this coach, he might put together a fancy video or write a great email. I don't care for him, or vice versa, all that stuff. So, pretty fortunate to kind of run into these people and start working with them when I was probably 13 or 14, all the way through the entire process. So I ended up landing at University of Colorado, and I didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe I was going to redshirt my freshman year, and sure enough, I qualified for the first tournament of the year. My first tee shot of college was number 18 at the Olympic Club, and ended up getting to play in all the tournaments there for 4 years. Played a lot of good golf. Got to play with Ricky Fowler and Jordan Spieth and Koepka, like in my group, and you get to kind of gauge your game against guys like that and get to see where you stand. So ended up
So
turning pro. And oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's all right. How did you know? I mean, I think this is important. So when did you know, like, hey, D1 was reality? Because I think a lot of kids around here think, hey, that's all I strive for is D1. That's what they have their goals set on. What would you, recommend? Like, how did you know that when it was time? Like, hey, I'm good enough to play D1. Like,
Well, I think honestly, and it's hard to say that I got really good quickly. Like when I was a freshman in high school, I was really good. And
yeah,
I don't think I had a great grasp on it, but I played the Future Collegiate World Tour
okay,
during my freshman school year. And I won 2 events. I lost in 3 playoffs, which is really hard to do. Um, and had 2 other events where I finished in the top 5. I had 4 top 10 finishes in AJGA. And again, all
okay,
this is before I'm even 16 years old. So I kind
yeah,
of realized I'm pretty good. But I think the main baseline is I look back at like my freshman year in high school, my stroke average was 71.4. And
okay,
kind of one of the main things that I'd heard a lot of is whatever your high school, or not even high school golf, but your junior golf stroke average is, add 2 strokes to that. And that's generally what your college stroke average will be. So,
okay,
okay, my stroke average is 73.4 in college. If you look at some college programs, you see, all right, like that's useful for a lot of programs that way. So, if there's a kid and his stroke average in high school is 76, is a 78 going to help a Division I program? No, it's
mhm,
not. Like there are programs that score can help, but it's not. I'm not at the Division I level. So,
mhm.
I just pretty quickly saw that I, knew how to post good scores. And then the very first school I visited was Oklahoma State, and to meet with Mike McGraw and have him kind of tell me some encouraging things that I was on his short list and stuff like that. It was October of my sophomore year whenever I met with Coach McGraw. So pretty quickly I had the reality. I was like, okay, like, it wasn't like I was like, that is my goal. It's just I kept getting a little bit better at golf. And that was just kind of the next progression. And that's kind of been my story all throughout to where I'm at right now, just kind of following the natural progression of where things end up that way.
So I think that's great advice. The goal was just to keep getting better. So realistically, how many hours did you put in, as a junior golfer your freshman, sophomore year, practicing, playing, what that looked like for these kids that maybe just don't have a reality of what it takes to play D1? I mean,
Yeah, it's a lot. What's interesting, I look back on it because, it's not that I specialized in golf, but it was kind of in that little window, again, 2004 to 2008 when I was in high school, where there
yeah,
wasn't a great grasp on what was what, like how to become a great athlete at any sport. I actually played basketball at Central my freshman year. And that was
mhm,
the year where like I'm going from practice in the gym to practice on the course, then flying to a tournament in Orlando and losing in a playoff. So I was super busy and I wasn't necessarily even practicing as much as I would have otherwise. But I then realized I was like, all right, basketball, all that's going to end up being is jammed fingers in 4 minutes of playing time because it wasn't very good.
yeah,
So, honestly, like amount of time is it, the only thing that almost hurt me is like I didn't have a ton of other hobbies. So I really loved golf. Like I said, my friends were there. I got to compete for a few
yeah,
bucks with my dad and his guys. Um, so I was just at the golf course all the time. And I had this from my old instructor. I heard him say it. It was a Ben Hogan quote, and it's on my wall to this day. And it's every day you miss playing or practicing is one day longer it takes to be great. So in my
well,
mind, that essentially meant no days off.
yeah,
So every single day I was trying to do something that I could get better at. And I've since, as I've gotten a little older, with my body and everything,
yeah.
I've learned sometimes getting like, what can you do to help yourself is actually take a day off. Because, if you
Amen.
just go for 34 straight days, you're going to get really tired. You
Yeah,
got to get a little recovery built in there too. But, if I see some kids where it's like, they're like, oh, it's been a really hard 4 days. I got to take a week off. That's okay, but that's also not what kids who are playing at the Division I level do. It's every single day you are absolutely in the dirt trying to figure out what it's going to take. Or you're an incredible talent. And those are rare. It's good
yeah.
players are a dime a dozen. It's how do you separate yourself? And a lot of times that just comes in work ethic and passion and being a good person and all those things, because at a Division I level, like the coach wants somebody that he can put on the front of his media guide. And that's not going to be somebody who, might have a past or a history of, not being a good person. They want somebody that they can put at the front of the program that way. So it all kind of ties in that way as well.
So that leads into this question, I think, is, based off what you've experienced, what's your best advice for these junior golfers to get recruited? What would you suggest that you learned from the mistakes that you made, and how they can prevent those mistakes?
Yeah. I got lucky in the sense of getting recruited where not a whole lot of mistakes were made just because of we were aided and like our hands were held the entire way throughout the process. The main advice I'll tell anybody is you just have to work hard, and that's on the course and off the course. That's in the classroom, but also like, whenever a kid is sending an email to a coach, hop on the team website, and there's at the bottom of the coach's bio, there's a little personal thing. It lists their family, and then like 2 little tidbits about them. And if, coach whoever loves to fish, in the email say, oh, I love fishing too. I actually just caught a whatever, it's that little bit of work that you can show that you're willing to put in. And over time, the coaches will notice that because, oh, did this coach copy and paste this player copy and paste the exact same email to 60 coaches?
Yeah.
Or did this kid take a little initiative and make it personal? Hey, Coach Edwards, I saw Kansas won a big game the other day, and I thought of you because of that. Just wanted to let you know I just shot 71 in my most recent tournament. Birdied 2 of my last 3 holes to finish in 3rd place. So I didn't have a whole lot of craft that day, but I was happy to finish the way I did. It's not hard, but it takes extra work ethic. It takes a push to reach the highest level, just like with anything. I mean, and again, like not everybody has to do that, but again, it's just, there are levels and there's tiers and there's rankings for all of it. And then it kind of shows, if a coach gets an email and you literally put the wrong coach's name because you forgot to change the one word in an email that you're supposed to change, do you think that coach is going to count on you whenever the 5-man gets sick at a tournament? It's 4 count 4 and it's windy?
Yeah,
probably not. And that's the sort of thing that they're always trying to decipher through. So, the mistake that I made, I think, is, I was good. So at a young age, so I kind of thought of myself in that way. The Achilles heel of my game was my putter. Everything else I did really well, but my putter wasn't great. And I justified too many scores that were not as good as they should be by saying, oh, I shot 73, but I 3-putted 3 times. So in my mind, I kept telling myself I shot 70, but then on the scoreboard gets posted a 73. And it wasn't, and I did that all throughout junior golf. And my first tournament of college at the Olympic Club, I shot 73 the last day. And I come off the last green and I'm like, oh man, 73 boys, but I missed 4 putts inside of 8 feet on the back 9, should have been a 69. And one of the seniors on the team, 5th-year senior, ended up being an All-American that year. He literally pulls me aside and he gets right in my face. And he's like, and he swore at me a couple of times. And I'm thankful that he did, because he got my attention. And he's like, your 73 is no better than my 73. And until you realize that, you're cutting yourself short. And that wasn't my coach. That was a peer.
Wow.
And I literally took a step back and was like, oh, I've been doing that like all the time. Now it's to the point now where whenever I'm just at a tournament, doesn't matter if it's high school or college, professional even, and I hear guys, oh man, I lipped out a couple of times, or no one cares. Like, all that matters, it's the score you shoot. Like, how many times do you hear people him and hawing about, man, I blew one way in the trees and it kicked out where I had like a nice little gap and I could save par. Like, no one thinks about that, but like, it's literally just as relevant as any lip out you have. And I say that in the sense of, it's not relevant. It doesn't matter. Whatever you shoot is what you shoot. And if you're trying to justify higher scores by saying, oh, well, I would have done this, I would have, made a different decision if this or that, like, no, your score is who you are. And that's kind of the beauty or the downside of this game, depending on kind of the mentality you take as you do it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the coaches that we've talked to and that we've learned is don't make excuses, and it's the preparation. If you prepare, good things kind of happen, right? And I think the preparation that you do with a lot of our clients with course management, how to plan the course before you play it so you can commit to the shot, exactly what to do in what situation. Golf, you're going to have bad breaks. That's just how it is, but it's how you respond. So can you hit more on that? Like what the course management side, what it takes to play at the professional level, like you're doing, and playing at the highest levels, because one stroke can cost you a lot of money.
Right. Yeah. That's one thing that I've generally had a decent idea on how to get around the course, because I've never been like the most skilled guy on the course. And
Mhm.
you know, you have to kind of think your way around almost, and it's almost been to a detriment at times where I've been too conservative in situations.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know in college, most of the times coaches are trying to rein kids in and be more conservative, where my coach was trying to let me be more aggressive in certain situations. But I was able to kind of, you know, there's a system that you can play with where it's very much just analytics based, takes nerves out of or takes like
Yeah.
you know, human error out of decision making, where it doesn't matter if you've just made an eagle or a double bogey, you're hitting to the same target, hitting the same club. Doesn't matter if you have a 3-shot lead or you're down by 2, you do the same thing over and over again, and it will yield just a better result. So yeah, there's some kids I've been trying to, you know, talk to about it, and it's you know, it's hard. It's not just something that you pick up in a day. And it's hard in the same way golf is. You can't just like teach someone golf and like expect them to have the same passion for it that you do or anything like that. You know, there has to be like a desire behind the knowledge that you're receiving. So,
Mhm.
you know, I'm always happy to help, you know, others in the area kind of have a better understanding of how to get around a golf course in a way that's nice when you're competing. Like I said, it's
Yeah.
really nice whenever you can just take any indecision out of play in that way. But you know, if someone doesn't really buy into what it is, if you know, they're like, oh, I'll do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, if you're halfway in, it's like there's no point in being in at all. So you know, it's been an interesting sort of kind of journey, because again, I don't blame anybody for their approach with anything, because I don't
Yeah.
expect anybody to be just like me or be just like you or
Yeah.
whomever.
Exactly.
You know, all we can do is kind of teach off our experiences and what we know and stuff like that. And you know, getting around a golf course and managing it is something I believe everybody can do. You
Yeah.
know, I think it's one of the reasons why coaches in college, like there are, believe it or not, there's a lot of guys, especially on my team, that just didn't know how to manage a course and drove my coach crazy. And it's one of those things where he ended up not helping me a whole lot with it because he trusted me out there.
Yeah.
You know, like I just piggybacking off that thought, you know, something else I remember is, you know, I worked hard every day, like I had said, and then I showed up, and it was always surprising to me whenever certain guys on my team like would not be at the golf course on an off day. So, you know, by knowing how to manage a course, knowing how to work hard, knowing how to, you know, manage your time, like those are ways to differentiate yourself. And just in general, like trying to share those stories and things that I know with kids, it's the least I can do to kind of give back based on the experiences that I've had so far.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. You know, a lot of these kids have dreams to play professional golf. So you're doing it. You've done it how many years now?
I turned pro June 2012.
Okay.
So a lot. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's a lot.
You've been doing it for a while. I mean, it's impressive. And so what would you say to the kid that aspires to be following in your shoes, that wants to play D1, wants to play professional golf? What would you tell yourself, you know, back 2008, you know, like that kid?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I didn't just go on this journey like expecting to be where I am today. You know, there's aspirations, and it's like, oh, I want to win a U.S. Open trophy. I want to, you know, be the next Payne Stewart, this and that. You know,
Yeah.
I think the main thing I would say is like you just have to really trust what you do and believe in it, like you couldn't believe in anything more, basically. You know, like there have been times throughout my journey here where like I've been like, man, is this really like the calling? Is this really what I'm supposed to do? But I just really trust my process of it. You know, some kids, they jump out on tour year one and they're all the way there, and some it's kind of a slow burn.
Mhm.
And you know, I just really think that started when I was 13 years old. I took my first lesson from Sam Reynolds, and he kind of instilled a belief in me that I could be something, and that's never really kind of gone away. So I believe in myself, and I believe that I've taken the appropriate steps. I'm getting a little bit better every day. My swing is getting a little tighter. I'm learning how to practice a little bit better. I'm making better decisions on the golf course. I'm controlling my trajectories a little bit better. So it's, if you can figure out kind of what getting better looks like for you, and I think that's different for everybody as well, because not everybody's at the same starting place. You know, not everybody's going to end up playing professionally, but
Mhm.
there is something to getting better over time. And it's not by anybody else doing any work for you. It's not because you're going to go spend a bunch of money at some new instructor or anything like that. It's just having an internal belief that like, man, if I keep doing this drill, it's going to pay off. If I keep working on this little piece of my swing, it's going to pay off. If I keep working on this fade with my driver, it's going to pay off. So I just think there has to be a process in place, and that can
Yeah.
be assembled by a person, a player, their parents, their team, whatever that looks like, and just dive into it. I think recently we can look at the example of Jordan Spieth. Like, he
Yeah.
burst onto the scene. We all know this. He wins the John Deere at age 19. I played with him the year before that, and I was like unimpressed with his game, and he won like a massive tournament and again, it's just, that's how good he was. He was unimpressively good. It's just boring golf. Okay.
Get in
3
the
under in super windy conditions. But like, I don't believe anything about him has really changed. He's kind of always had this belief that he is on course. He didn't change instructors when he started hitting the ball squirrely. It's like, all right, like golf's always going to be like this, but just keep trusting what you do. So, and again, that's something that I know you can certainly help out a lot of junior golfers with and stuff like that. It's kind of like developing what that process looks like for each player.
Yeah.
And I know you're the kind of guy too, where it's like, if somebody asks you something you don't know the answer, you're not going to lie to them. You're going to find someone who does. And that doesn't mean that if you're outsourcing or whatever, like you're honest enough and you care about kids enough to do that sort of thing. So that's what I like about you. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about a swing to actually like build someone up. I don't want to do that. That's hard enough with just mine.
Don't you think? Yeah. And don't you think that's why it's so important to have a team, and that's why I've referred to multiple coaches, different people that I feel like I'm not the expert in, equipment, you for course management. I mean, I think it's important to build those resources around you and find a good fit, personality wise, somebody you're comfortable with, that, you can take that criticism from, and somebody you look up to and aspire to be like. And I think that's why it's so cool that we met. And I'm just blessed that you approached me about college, and we came up with this idea for helping local kids find, the next level. And I think it's pretty awesome. So I appreciate everything you've done, and I appreciate your story. And I think these kids can really, learn something from what you have to say. So anything else?
Yeah. Let me say one last thing, jumping on kind of the team thing. And it's something that I've seen is, and this is more going to be directed towards like the parents that might be watching this, is like, there's a level of like, parents are a part of the team for a junior golfer as well. But no matter how passionate a parent is, the junior golfer is not just going to suddenly develop it because the parent has the passion. It either lives in the kid or it doesn't. And if the parent tries to force it out, it's only going to get worse for them, So I would say like the role of the parent, like you love, support, if tough love is necessary, that's fine, because frankly, the parents are the ones footing the bill. So if the kid's just not putting in the effort and, kids are playing all over the country or whatever, like hold their feet to the fire, of course. But just know that like, no matter how much you want a scholarship or an opportunity in college or a trophy or whatever it is, it's up to the player to have the passion. It has to come from inside. And, whatever motivates them is up to them to kind of figure out. And again, but just whenever you mention team, that's something I wanted to mention, because I've just seen so many times where like you see a kid who's super talented and good, but like they don't like golf by the time they're 16 or 17 because their parents have kind of like pushed them to a point where like it is no longer fun. It's the sort of thing you hear about, but again, you still see it. And I don't think many parents even realize that they're doing it until it's almost too late. So again, that's something we want to get the messaging out on, is like, just let the kids be kids, let them play multiple sports, let them have their friends. I know I've kind of emphasized work ethic quite a bit, but I think even deeper than that is time management. Like there's nothing wrong with playing another sport or having friends or, this or that. Like you still want to get better at golf, but it's all like, there's just as much psychological in golf as well. And some of that comes from like, you don't want your parents feeling like they're enemies in this. Like you want to feel like it's a team, and there's a right way to do that. And someone like you, someone like me, for a kid, like we're the ones who, like, when you're on payroll, you can come down hard on somebody. Like they're the ones that you need to hear it from, because likely you're not. Sam Reynolds used to get in my face and say things that didn't make me feel very good. And sometimes he hit me with golf clubs, but I love the guy. He taught me more about golf than anybody ever has or will. And he kind of got me to the player that I was. And, that was the sort of relationship that I needed. And, that sort of thing might not work right now in 2021, but like I said, it's little situations like that, people that came into my lives, opportunity that came to me at the right time, that I feel really, really fortunate and blessed that they happened the way they did, because I wouldn't be here without them.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Kev. That's a great word. So appreciate everything you do for these kids, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Sean. You have a good night. All right.
All right. You too.